Good morning, Essex County College family. Welcome to Virtual Cafe. This is episode 17. We are continuing our series on the history of Egypt with our favorite Dr. Spellman. This is Egypt 102. We're glad and privileged to have the wonderful Dr. Spellman with us today. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Oh, good morning, Joe. What a pleasure it is to be with our Essex family.
We got Cuz Lewis Crawford with us today. Mr. Crawford, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Not too bad, man. Good to see
I
your face.
appreciate you coming on.
You been out?
A couple of times here and there. Went out to the food store. Took a couple walks,
Okay.
you know. How about you?
No. Well, I've been out to the store.
Nice.
I'd like to take you to Egypt. We don't want to go back over everything we covered the other day, but you know this is the Nile River. It was called the gift of the Nile because, as I told you before, 95% of Egypt is desert and rock, and only 5% water, which is the Nile River. The Nile River is the longest river in the world, 4,150 miles long. And it flows instead of north to south, it flows from south to north, comes up from Lake Victoria. But that's been the key. And Herodotus, the great Greek historian, came to Egypt in the 4th century, and he called the Nile the gift of the Nile, because without the Nile, we wouldn't have the civilizations that we've had. And it's the longest civilization in the history of the world. But as you know, and as I said the other day, the Egyptians believed in life after death. And when you were entombed, that was very important. You were often entombed with all the treasure you had. Whatever you were in this life, you would be there. If you were a king here, you'd be a king there. If you were a peasant then, you'd be a peasant there. Now, this pyramid dates the Great Pyramid of Giza, which I showed you the other day. This was designed by a black man by the name of Imhotep. If you go to NJIT and you study architecture, you're going to study the genius of Imhotep, who was really the Vizier, or the prime minister, to a pharaoh by the name of Zoja. And he built this step pyramid. And I've been fortunate enough, it's out there on the desert. I showed you this map the other day. Now, this is the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is a perfect isosceles triangle. And this is what I'm saying. In math, we study Pythagoras. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So if you know two sides of a triangle, you can calculate the third using what we call Pythagoras theory. And that was 400 BC. Well, I'm here to tell you the other day that that Great Pyramid you see there, we're on the work site right now, was 4,500 years BC. So that meant, 2,500 BC or 4,500 years ago. You have to add on the 2,000. Can you imagine that's the only standing seventh wonder of the world?
Wow.
And it has 1,900,000 70-ton to blocks. And we're going to see how they built it, the ingenuity of it. And we're all familiar with this scene. It's a pyramid, and then you see the Sphinx. You might want to know, why is the nose off of the Sphinx? Well, during Napoleon's time, they came, and you see these figures we told you before. These were Negroid or black figures, those lips and that nose. So his army, they had a target practice. Not only they shot off the beard, which you can find in the British Museum, but then the lips and the nose to destroy the racial identity of it. But the Egyptians were an ingenious people to have built this pyramid. Just that one pyramid took 20 years, 200,000 men, and is 2,100,000 80-ton limestone blocks in it. And when you go out there, you're in the desert. You can see couple of little specks here. Those are people, little specks. It's a gigantic, we call them the pyramids of Giza. And I took this picture. I'm over there by the pyramid, but look at the Sphinx over on this side. Look at all the people, the buses. We got off our buses here and could visit it. But when you go inside the pyramid, you see these chambers. Can you imagine 4,500 years ago, and these chambers are solid, is solid cut 90-degree angles, and the precision and their ingenuity is to be admired. So when I stand on this block, I'm standing on 4,500 years old architecture, and they covered it with a covering, and I'm standing out a mile away.
Look at that young man right there. Wow.
Yeah, any man too. Well, the Great Pyramid of Giza, we call it Cheops. The Europeans call it Cheops. And I told you about my grandfather who went in there, and this is taken during the 40s, 50s. And I always said when I looked at picture him, I wanted to go to Egypt. And I got a chance to go to Egypt not only once, but 9 times, and to visit this same structure each time. I also went to the Great Step Pyramid. I showed you that first. That's older than that pyramid, built by Imhotep, the Vizier, and that's pronounced Imhotep. You see it up on the screen. Now, he built what is called a mastaba, these platforms. They were really tombs. And then he would build one on top of another, but each one would get smaller. So that's where, if you see, I'm pointing to what is called the Great Step Pyramid of Sakkara. And it's a little ways out from Cairo, but these are called mastabas. So here you see, look at it back. That's a lion's body. That's the Sphinx. And I took these pictures many times when I've been in Egypt, and we're right there on the blocks, and we can see the great city. And we talked about the pharaohs, but we'll talk about them later. Our next cafe, we're going to talk about King Tut. But this one, I really wanted to get across some things about the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's 140 degrees out there.
That meant another group was needed,
Damn.
the sharpeners timber for their fires, and water too. These would certainly have been suitable tasks for the untrained conscripts. Another specialist group in the quarry was the scribes. To ensure that it reached its correct destination, every block was marked with a different symbol ready to be transported to the pyramid itself. The question, when an average block weighed 2.5 tons, was how?
Look at that, students.
Sound like a sled.
They
That is
put
crazy.
water down to make it easier to slide.
Okay.
The job was to hold stones from the quarry face to the pyramid itself. How funny. It seemed it was always my friends. Grandfather had always said, if you want to get on, keep in with the boss.
That rope must be real thick.
Soon worked out there was a real knack to this work. Without water, the sledge would stick fast. Just enough. And it slid easily.
The water would slide across those logs. In other words, that stone, one stone.
And because of strict demarcation, those working around the quarry face would not have set foot on the pyramid itself. The site could only be accessed by the means of 2 huge ramps, one running up directly from the quarry to the pyramid, the other running from the pyramid to the Nile. They met at the pyramid's southwest corner. never forget climbing the ramp for the first time. I had never been so high in my life. It was the first time we had seen the pyramid from close up. It just took your breath away. The pyramid already towered above the desert floor. Without cranes or levers, the only way the pyramid builders could have raised stone to such a height was on ramps, made of the desert earth and compacted rubble, and held together with gypsum mortar. On our way up, we passed different horning teams. The friends of Khufu, the worshippers of Khufu. The foremen were getting them to compete for who could work fastest. As one gang was going up with a loaded sledge, they'd meet another coming down empty.
How many men it took for one stone to be moved?
This rivalry fueled a phenomenal work. Each and every working day for around 16 years, 1,000 tons of stone were
Look
quarried,
at that.
cut and dragged up onto the surface.
Amazing.
This immense construction project.
They're all barefoot.
Yes.
And constructing
You
the
can't
upper
count
part
on
of the pyramid
you
was
can't
not the
count on your
first
hands.
that confronted Khufu's builders. From outside, the pyramid looks like a solid structure, but as a tomb, it had to contain a burial chamber. Uniquely, the Great Pyramid was to accommodate not one, but three. One chamber was raised some 100 feet up in the actual masonry, and directly beneath it was another, dug into the rock of the desert floor. By 2474 BC, the third and most important chamber was under construction, and so was a huge internal gallery by which it would be reached. The top of the pyramid in progress was a plateau, roughly the size of 10 football fields joined together. At its center was the internal gallery, where teams of specialists were preparing for the construction of the upper burial chamber. You enrolled Deba and me in a work gang hauling blocks in a great central passageway for a chamber that was being constructed at the very top. He explained that this chamber would be the final resting place of the king. The steep slope of the passageway made the work exhausting. At the end of the day, we longed to return to our barracks.
Doc, we have some questions real quick.
All right.
How many men would it take for one of those
Pyramid?
stones to be moved? Was it really like, it looked like there was a couple dozen
About
men moving one.
About 40.
40.
About 40 men.
Wow.
And that's all physical. And they work 6 days a week. They really work 10 days. And then they would have a day off for rest. And in that hot sun. But the keys, there's some keys we need to look at that are so fantastic. One was the organization. Someone said, well, it took a lot of skill. It took geometry, the knowledge of geometry. And I'd like maybe the next one to show you. Malcolm X went to Egypt, and he had always said that the white folks, all the whites were devils. And he went to overseas, and he found out not only did he meet fantastic Islamic people who were white, but he also met the reality of Egypt. And he went to Egypt, and he looked at those faces of those pharaohs, and he makes quite a point of it. I'd like to have a little excitement for next time with that one, and we'll do Tutankhamun, who's a black man too. And I'm not one, the Greeks. I'm salute the Greeks, the Romans, and the Chinese, all the arts. But what I really get annoyed with is the genius Egyptians who had environmental obstacles to, go with that hot sun. And they had to work so long, took so many people. And their whole thing was to give the king a recognition, special kind of recognition. Louis, do you have questions?
I want to know how many stones was it to build that pyramid?
It took it's a little over 2 million to build that one pyramid. 2 million stones, many of them 2 tons or more. You saw them moving them. And the gene was, you saw the quarries where they cut them, and then they had to bring them. Sometimes they had to bring them from a good distance away. Then when they did it, they had to transport them up, and sometimes they would even bring them down the Nile. They would throw them down the Nile. It was quite a feat.
Yeah, that's what he said.
But the key is organization. I never realized this until someone pointed it out. Organization in construction, if you don't have timing, you could lose the project. In other words, in New York, for an example, you got to use cement. You better know when that cement truck leaves, they can't get stuck in traffic. Or that truck will, the cement will get hard. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So timing and precision and organization, and that's what they did. Each sequential activity, and they built, and then they put a ramp, and then they put a casing over it afterwards. I showed you the casing a little while ago. So it's really, really fantastic to talk about it. And the next time we talk, I want to talk about Tutankhamun, how his tomb was found in the Valley of the Kings.
Question: what about the females? Did they work on the pyramid, or
they cooked meals? They showed in that. I have a long version of that film, and they lived in camps, and the women would be there, camps.
Okay.
But most of the time, it was men.
So I noticed that the pyramids have the ramps around, inside, so that they can continue building to finish the top of the pyramid. I noticed that all of the workers are barefoot, so they are lugging these blocks up the ramps to get to the top, and barefoot too.
Yeah, barefoot. Yeah, it's quite a thing. I'm telling you, they were an ingenious people, and I'm so proud. They're black people, but they have been discarded, and yet that's the longest lasting civilization in the history of the world. The Egyptians, all those pharaohs, all those dynasties, and all those things that took place there. Now, the next time we talk, we want to talk about the tomb of Tutankhamun. He wasn't very famous. He didn't accomplish anything. His tomb was the only one found intact. And what do you mean by that? Well, robbery was a big thing, and they were supposed to bury the pharaoh in the tomb, but they took everything that he owned in there, all his gold, okay, and everything else, because he would use that in the afterlife, as they felt. Well, sometimes when they were building the pyramids, those chambers, they would hand off the plans. So as soon as the guy died, they went in there and took all the rubble. Now, Tut's tomb was the only tomb that was not pilfered. See, this was his wife, Ankhesenamun. You see that? And then the symbol of the pharaoh was a cobra. but this is the mask that they found on top of his face, and that's all solid gold. I went to the Egyptian Museum. I stood about 3 feet away, but 2 feet away was this great 6-foot god, because this is priceless. And this is what he looked like. He became pharaoh when he was 9. He died when he was 19. Many people believe he was assassinated. He used to play games. These are some of his games. And then when we talk about Ramesses, Ramesses was a man who, you can see his face. He lived to be 92. And don't fall off your chair, but he fathered 141 children.
Wow.
And he had all these queens.
He had a tribe.
That's a lot of payments.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a good job, dude.
Yeah, but see, they had to raise, and this is a story too, they had to raise the tomb of Ramesses up because people were starving up in this area. And it came to either they were going to cover the tomb of Ramesses with water, or the people would not be able to eat. So what they did when they raised the money was millions of dollars. Jacqueline Kennedy was involved, and they raised the tomb up 200 feet. And so the Aswan Dam was built. And, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that was the tomb of Ramesses. This is inside the Egyptian Museum. And that's a fascinating place to be on the Nile. It's a fascinating place to be. So the next time I wanted to focus on, we talked about the construction of the pyramid, how long it took, how many people it took to build it. You saw that film.
The ancient Egyptians built the finest
Look at that.
monuments the world has ever seen.
Wow.
The Great Pyramid, the largest stone building on Earth, was constructed with futuristic precision. How were such quantum innovations ever achieved? The Valley of the Kings contains over 60 royal tombs decorated with secret codes. How did the pharaohs reach the afterlife? Hatshepsut's temple, an architectural marvel. But why has the face of the pharaoh been erased? The Sphinx, carved from a single piece of rock, became the world's largest freestanding statue. What secrets lie behind it?
That's the one I showed you where they shut off his nose.
Complex, the largest on Earth, became an architectural battleground. What forces made Karnak prosper, and who tore it apart?
He had a lot of columns.
Ramesses the Great was carved into a cliff face with gigantic figures and chambers stretching for 200 feet. How could it vanish for thousands of years? And then there's Mount Sinai, Egypt's greatest natural wonder, the place where God is said to have spoken to Moses and given mankind the 10 Commandments. Some wonders would shape the course of our
And look at this.
Others would become shrines for all eternity. Throughout history,
Yes.
they continue to enthrall and inspire as the 7 wonders of ancient Egypt.
How many people did the sculpture of the pyramids and the
I don't
written
know
pyramids?
that one. I don't know. But thank you for my homework. I'm going to look that up because I'd like to know that. See?
Yeah, because that's a lot of writing and a lot of sculpture.
I tell my students, thank you for my homework assignment. Are we back, Joe?
Yeah, we're back. Hey, I have a question. That video said that the Sphinx was made out of one giant block of stone or rock?
No. Well, they could have. I don't know. Yeah, I think it might have been carved from one rock.
That's a giant rock. That's crazy.
Yeah. I want to know who sculpted that then. That's amazing.
That was the genius that they had,
Mm-hmm.
All right, y'all. We want to thank you for tuning in to Virtual Cafe. This was episode 17, Egypt 102, the second part in our multi-part series on the history of Egypt with our good friend Dr. Spellman. We also want to thank our good friend Mr. Lewis Crawford for joining the party today. What up, Mr. Crawford?
All right.
All right.
Utilize some activities all the way.
Amen. All right, thank you, Dr. Spellman. You have any final words for our viewers?
No, I'm looking forward to next week when we talk about Tutankhamun and what Malcolm X discovered when he went there. So same time, same place. And we'll look forward to next Thursday, God willing.
Excellent. All right, to all of you at home, we thank you for tuning in. We hope you're doing well. We hope your family's doing well. Stay safe. We will catch you on the flip side. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.